Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Drew McNichol. He's executive director at Technology by Design, and Loyd Bittle, CEO and founder at Innovar Healthcare. Welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited for the discussion. A lot happening in the interoperability space right now, and some big changes. And I'm excited to learn from both of you about some of the projects you're working on and the efforts you're making to improve interoperability. But before we go there, Drew, why don't you start us off? Tell us about yourself and Technology by Design.
Sure. I'm currently the executive director of Technology by Design. It's a nonprofit organization put in place at the direction of New York State Department of Health to support technical infrastructure and shared services for New York's Health Information Exchange Network. Prior to that, I spent 15 years at HEALTHeLINK, which is the HIE in Buffalo and Western New York. So I've been in this business for a bit.
Awesome. Great to have you. And Loyd, how about yourself and Innovar Healthcare?
Yeah, so my name is Loyd Bittle, and I'm the CEO of Innovar Healthcare. At Innovar, our focus is moving data, interoperability from any source to any destination in any format. We have a number of products and services that are centered around that focus area.
Awesome. Well, Drew, maybe you could kick us off. Tell us what are some of the things that have made the open source Mirth platform so powerful over all the years that it's been used, and why did so many places in healthcare adopt it? And then Loyd, you could chime in after.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think if you look at it, we came to Mirth through its Mirth Results platform, which was the HIE platform with Mirth. And when we first started looking at it, it was one of the really first truly accessible integration engines built specifically for healthcare. And it gave organizations like us at the HIEs who have limited budget a powerful tool to process and route clinical data. And we love the idea of the open source nature, which allowed us to do customizations as needed. It allowed us to do rapid development, and it really has a vibrant community of users who we can share information with and learn from out there. There's a pretty big following. Plus, the other thing I'll mention here is that in New York State, the HIEs, there's 6 HIEs in New York State, and most all of them have skilled Mirth Connect integration engineers. And so that was really attractive to us. We had a good pool of folks that understood the platform.
Wow. It's interesting. I think they say if you've seen one HIE, you've seen one HIE, right? Because everyone focuses on a different area. So it's a good point on the customizations. Loyd, what else would you add?
Yeah, I think my involvement with the Mirth Connect platform goes back before being an employee of Mirth. I was actually a customer. So back maybe even as early as 2008, 9 timeframe, I began to be a user of Mirth Connect, and we had some challenges in a previous company I worked with integration and interoperability, and we did what a lot of other folks during that time was doing was looking for ways to exchange data, to exchange messages. Back then, it was primarily HL7, and out of that came, we discovered the Mirth Connect platform, and I remember the day that it happened. Sitting in my living room, downloaded Mirth, installed it on my laptop, and realized pretty quickly that it was going to upend the business. At the time, the interface engine was a special thing. You had the big vendors, Cloverleaf and Rapsy, and those folks out there. And it was built for healthcare, and it had a very low barrier to entry. And so as a result, it became ubiquitous in the business. And we used it. We used it during meaningful use, and then we deployed it as a solution embedded within the platform, which a lot of the other software companies during that time and forward to today did the same thing. Embedded it, it became, because it allowed for rapid prototyping. You could put it on a Mac, you could put it on a laptop, you could prototype your solutions As those prototypes, those MVPs, proof of concepts became production class software, the Mirth Connect platform went along with it, which is exactly what happened with us with the company I was at before.
That's interesting, Loyd, because you came at it like natively from being a customer of it. We learned about it through a vendor who had it embedded.
Yeah.
And so one of the things in my new role, we're implementing a new HIE platform that's intended to support all of the HIEs in New York State. We're working with 3 of them currently to migrate them to a new platform. But one of the things that we did architecturally at the start was to say, we're going to continue with our integration platform being Mirth Connect and now BridgeLink. And so rather than turn that over to a healthcare IT vendor, we wanted to own that as Tech by Design and the health information exchanges in New York. And so all of the data will be coming in to our AWS environment where we're running BridgeLink. And so we have complete access to all the inbound data flowing in, and all of the outbound data will flow through BridgeLink as well. So it gives us that autonomy not to be fully dependent on a healthcare vendor software solution. We get access to that data and we can provision it to whatever destination we are looking to do to move forward. So it gives us complete flexibility without the tremendous licensing costs that you might have with an IT vendor, a healthcare IT vendor. So
Drew,
we came
that's
at
really
it
interesting.
different
Yeah,
ways.
yeah, we want to dive more into that decision and that move. But Loyd, talk to us about why did Innovar decide to fork Mirth and create BridgeLink? As Drew said, he's moving from Mirth to BridgeLink. Talk about the decision to fork and some of the efforts you've made, with BridgeLink to continue the open source nature of the interoperability platform.
So I worked for NextGen and originally for Mirth, and then through the acquisition by NextGen, I left NextGen a few years back and formed Innovar Healthcare. And central to our business was the open source Mirth Connect, and we were the very first company to support Mirth Connect in the cloud. We led with a number of AWS marketplace images that makes the Mirth Connect installing Mirth Connect much easier. We developed our plugins. We had a cloud strategy, and then our managed service, which is called LightSwitch, also was underpinning for that is the Mirth Connect suite. So it was central to our business. And so when I received the call earlier this year, January, February timeframe, that tipped me that NextGen was going to go this direction, I decided then and talked with the leadership team at Innovar, and we decided as a group that the only option we had was to fork this product. And we talked about it over the years, and we decided, not to dilute the core Mirth Connect software and to keep it with NextGen and not to fork it. Well, when NextGen made the decision to close the source, it left us with no options to survive. We had to fork, and we were in a pretty unique position. So we had some of the original Mirth Connect employees that worked for us, worked with us, and we also had already developed a number of the plugins that were common in Mirth Connect. So we were in a very unique position to do this, and we had the expertise as well. And so for
Yeah.
those reasons, we decided to do the fork.
Well, it's fascinating because it's actually kind of illustrates one of the beauties of open source. The fact that you can just fork the software and still continue using it, which wouldn't, to Drew's point, if it was a private company, you couldn't really do that. You wouldn't have access to the source code and things like that. So in some ways, that's the advantage of the open source, and so it's interesting you're able to do that. Drew, I'd love to hear more about, why you did decide to transition from Mirth to BridgeLink. Obviously you could have continued with the private license as well, but talk to us about why you decided to switch to BridgeLink, the new, fork of Mirth.
Yeah, sure. I've been at this a while, so we see different acquisitions and mergers occur. Some are positive and some are not so positive. So we were, from where I sat, we did evaluations of the vendors that are out in the marketplace. And one of the things in talking to Loyd, I worked with Loyd when he was at Mirth when we did an implementation, so I kept in touch. And one of the things we talked about strategically was, what is the direction with Mirth Connect? Now that NextGen bought Mirth and they're going through some transitions, we did have the question around what if it becomes license only? And at that point, Loyd had indicated that he was aware of that and had plans to move forward. So I had a confidence in Innovar and the Innovar Loyd and his team that they would be able to take that and fork the code to come up with BridgeLink. The other thing that we saw was that the Mirth Connect product was getting a bit stale. The upgrades and the security releases and things were becoming slower and slower. So we were sort of suspecting that this might occur, and so we were positioning for it. So that's when Loyd and I had some strategic discussions around, hey, how would this work? What are you planning to do? And I had to brief our board about that as well to say, like, this might occur, but here's how we're planning to move forward. And they were supportive of that. And as you know, that did happen, and we're full in on moving to BridgeLink. And so it fit really nicely with our overall strategy on what we were doing with our integration environment and how we want to move forward. And it allowed us to continue to leverage the experience that we have across New York State with integration engineers who know Mirth Connect. We had hundreds of channels built in Mirth Connect already. So the investment and the asset that we had there is preserved by being able to move over to BridgeLink and then get to a point where we can innovate and work with Loyd and his team to innovate and bring that even more features and functionality as we move forward.
That's a good point, Drew. I mean, it makes sense. Your engineers already have experience with it, and they'd have to, evolve that experience, if you made a different decision. I'd love to hear also, like, what are some of the things that made you comfortable that BridgeLink has a bright future and aligns with your goals going forward? I mean, I know I'm built on healthcare IT today is built on the back of WordPress, right? Like, I make that same decision, like, what's the future of WordPress look like? And it's actually been a little bumpy lately, ironically. So it's like, I want to know what the future is, right? We've done the same with Linux, with Apache, right? Familiar with those. Like, the key is having a good community behind it that's going to drive it forward. So, what made you comfortable that BridgeLink has that community that's going to be, so be able to support you going forward?
Yeah, we talked about that too. I think, Loyd mentioned his team at Innovar are folks that have deep expertise in the Mirth Connect product. Many of them we've worked with for years and years and years. So we had strong confidence in their ability to pull this off and have the expertise to not only take the code, but to innovate on it and move forward. I know Loyd had already been developing plugins that are really helpful in that environment to do various capabilities that we'd be looking to move forward on. And in some cases, plugins that went beyond what NextGen was providing inside there. So we saw a track record of their ability to support that platform, to innovate on that platform, and have the right set of resources to move that forward. So we felt really comfortable based on the skill sets there and quite frankly, the community, because there's others in the community that continue to use it. And so, strength in numbers as we move forward with BridgeLink.
Yeah, I mean, it really is the key with open source. You need the community. Otherwise, you don't really have an open source project. You just have some code. Loyd, talk to us more about that and the efforts you're making to kind of bring the community together and hear from the community and make it a community project, not just an Innovar, internal project that's kind of open source code.
Yeah, so I think early on we focused on security patches. Once we realized that we were going to fork it, we began to look at some of the critical updates that were needed, and decided that the best approach would be to focus early on with security patches, and then and then secondly the community and building those relationships they have the code that has been donated to the open source Mirth Connect that was not implemented. So we felt like we needed to get those components and implemented and utilized. So we did, they call them pull requests. We brought in a couple of pull requests from the community, security patches, the pull request, and then we began to look at some interesting functions and features, because we're in a journey, right? Right now the Mirth Connect is an engine, BridgeLink is an engine. What we want to do is move it closer to becoming a platform. And so we started that journey with the dynamic lookup gateway, which is part of the 454 product, which was released a few days ago. The dynamic lookup gateway allows standardization across the organization for certain mappings, for example, ethnicity, gender, marital status, LOINC codes, those things that are generally done at every integration project. Well, we wanted to give users the capability to standardize those across in the entire BridgeLink product, but also make those externally available across the entire organization. And so that's what we did with the dynamic lookup gateway, which came out in BridgeLink 4.5.4.
Interesting. Talk to us more about that idea of like moving beyond just a messaging platform, or messaging system to really a full platform. What else do you see in that? Is this what the community's been asking for? Talk about, what you mean by, a platform.
So the engine today, Mirth Connect and BridgeLink, is primarily enabling the exchange of messages. With 4.5.4, which is the new version, we're actually implementing this concept of the DLG, which is a dynamic lookup gateway. With that, we're moving just from a pure moving messages focus area more to building a platform that's useful across the organization. So, for example, the DLG can standardize your mappings, your ethnicity, your gender, your marital status, your religion. That all systems need to consume, and that most systems struggle. Most software companies struggle with those standard mappings, and so we're going to make that available across the organization externally to BridgeLink. So today it's within the product itself. The interface developers utilize those mappings. We're going to surface that across the organization so everyone can standardize, and then we're going to grow that feature and function to make other things externally available, and then add other features that will increase this move from an engine to a platform.
That's awesome. Drew, I imagine that's music to your ears hearing about some of the directions it's going, but what are going to be some of the keys to making sure that that BridgeLink is a vibrant and open community that's supporting, your mission as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it starts with governance and having clear models for decision making, contributions, and support. And so as a customer, we always like to give our recommendations, and so I think that requires transparency. Working with Loyd and his team with roadmaps, maybe some requests for comments out to the community to say, here's what we're thinking about. Give us some feedback. I'd love to be able to share what we're thinking we need on the way going forward, and hear from others in the community as well. So I think roadmaps and documentation and exclusivity, like including folks in the community so they have their voice, are all really important, because we might be a little myopic on what we're asking, but others in the community may be asking for something that would benefit us as well. So I think it's that governance and roadmap and communication of those directions, and seeking the input of the community so that it can get aligned with where folks are heading. So that's what I see from being a customer, and what we'd be looking to do beyond just running BridgeLink with the new security fixes and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think you just described the beauty of open source. We might be myopic, but by having a community, we benefit from, a broader view. Lloyd, what else would you add as far as what it's going to take to make sure that BridgeLink is a vibrant and open community?
Well, I think that component, the community, right? With prior to BridgeLink, the community was not engaged actively, and we're going to take a different approach. We're going to lead with the community. We're going to let the community help us make decisions through our technical advisory board, as well as regular quarterly community meetings. We just had one yesterday, to involve and actively work with them, such that we let them drive features and functions in the product. We let them make the decisions as to the capabilities of the platform, and as we move forward, we'll take in contributions from the community, and then we'll provide those. It has to be a bi-directional capability. I mean, you have to keep that bi-directional lines of communication going, and by doing that, you build your community, you build those relationships, because that's the real value in an open source project. The value is not in the code, because the code's freely given away. The value is in the community, and so we're going to foster that community, build something that allows this product to grow, to become as successful as a legacy Mirth Connect platform has been, and we're going to take the product moving forward, with open source as our underpinning. That's who we are as a company.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to think about, because I don't think a lot of people realize that open source actually is one of the hardest ways to develop software, because you do have to build consensus in the community, and you do have to have hard conversations, rather than a private company just building software, based on their own product roadmap. Sure, with feedback from customers, it does take some extra work to make sure that the community is involved and participating. But to Drew's point, you can often discover new things that you didn't think were possible, and you can drive that consensus that's going to be more valuable. So it's going to be fun to watch your journey at BridgeLink, and collaborating with great organizations like Technology by Design. So I appreciate you guys coming on to share some insights and perspectives on what's happening. I know everyone that's on Mirth is having to make these decisions and understand, hey, what's happening, and what am I going to do going forward as Mirth kind of sunsets, as an open source project, and they have to make decisions. So thanks so much, guys, for taking time to talk with us. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com, or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcasting application. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.